There we go. Session is now being recorded. Delighted to be able to welcome David. David, just want to tell everybody who you are and so on, so that people know what you're going to be talking about today.
Sure. Hello again. Wait a minute. The internet is breaking up. Just kidding. I was trying to fake the internet's breaking up again. That was not even funny,
Don't,
right? Is this
no,
too
no,
soon?
no.
It's only been a
Don't
month.
do that. Don't do that.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm glad things are working great this morning. My name's Dave Anderson. I am with Articulate, and today's session's just, it's from a workshop that we do. So this is kind of a consolidated version, but it's really tries to address some different places that people enter e-learning. And the idea is that if you haven't done anything in e-learning, maybe you have an academic background or you were a classroom facilitator, teacher, and you don't know where to start. So that's a good place to start. Otherwise, folks have been maybe building e-learning for a little while. So is it kind of grouped into three little buckets? How do I get my stuff online quickly, right? If you don't have anything, then you're pretty good with no matter what it looks like. You just want to get something that you can put online and track. After a little while, things start to look, things are up there, and then you want to start doing things like making it look better, right? At some point, you start to actually care about that, and then at some point, you want to make it more interactive. So, kind of hit on each of these little areas. Each one has a deeper dive. Um, and but the resource page has a lot of links that kind of go to more extensive examples, probably better examples too. But really, just kind of helping folks kind of see what it looks like. And if anything, I think if there's one takeaway is, sometimes you get on LinkedIn or you look at examples or you look at awards and you think, you know, there's a lot of range in quality of content out there in terms of presentation. Everyone starts somewhere, and sometimes if you have nothing, just having something online, even if it's simple, even if it's doesn't look great, it's still something more than you had before you put it online, right? And so just moving through that and realizing it's always going to get better. I mean, I'll say real quick, I've been with Articulate 15 years. I've done this industry since 2000, been around e-learning. Back in 2000, back in 2000, the only way you could get examples is if you paid for a Brandon Hall kind of a report on some high-end examples. Like, you couldn't even see examples of e-learning, so no one even knew what was going on. It was this big mystery. Now, if you just look at the evolution in the past 5 years, 10 years of just the quality and the awareness from the course building side, right? I'm not talking about the people who don't do e-learning or don't build courses, but courses are better than they've ever been. But that doesn't mean that the person who just started is at that same point. So it's kind of sometimes unfair to judge someone who just published their first course with the same criteria that someone who's been doing it for 10 years or 5 years or has a media background. So that's important to think about because sometimes you just get kind of in that cycle of, well, my mine doesn't look like theirs or something. But every day it's something better, and you're here, and I mean, that's all I really want to say about that is just part of what we'll start off with is just getting started, getting something online, not worrying about anything else, and then from there, how do we continuously improve it and make it better?
That's a really interesting point, David, and thank you for that. The what I think is interesting is some people feel it's competitive, and it's not. Your competition is with yourself in the first instance. Can you make what you do slightly better? And what's really good is seeing those role models of other things that people do, which I think is it's exactly spot on. We see stuff and go, "Well, how can I make a version of that for me?" And you're exactly right.
I same thing with you go to the gym, someone's always lifting more, you're always aware of that, right? But at the end of the day, you're not competing against that person, you're competing against yourself. And perhaps, in e-learning, you're doing it for your learners or your company, not for the others. But the benefit of awareness is that you can see things, right? I think the I would say the one that I run these weekly challenges. I'd be curious if anyone's here has done any of the weekly challenge. I was kind of going through the names. Okay. Um, I will tell you, that the person who sends their first example and then the last example, always better, right? So there's just that repetition, and th the repetition of just doing something over and over, you get better, and you don't even know you've gotten better until you look back at your previous example. I could look at the leaderboard and pull people off like Jody, who 3 years she's done 4 years, maybe 5 years straight, has only missed, like, 1 or 2. Um, every year her looks better. Everyone on there, Jonathan and folks who just do these all the time, they might not see it, but I can see it. I can pull up a screenshot from 4 years ago. So I love that idea of the repetitions. Just the more reps you put in, the better you're gonna get without even realizing it, by doing that. So nothing's being shared. Okay, yeah. Oh, sorry. Um, but just being able to not compare, but then being aware. Oh, that's my point, sorry. One of the best ways to get better at e-learning is just to look at other examples. Technically, there's not a lot of difference in skills unless you start talking about things like, JavaScript or some kind of XAPI. But at the end of the day, a lot of it's that presentation layer, and just seeing different ways that things can be built is more than enough to make your content and your presentation better, right? If you only know how to use learning objectives to start it without maybe doing a scenario or mixing it up, then that's all you have. Or if you only have image on the right and text on the left, and then all of a sudden you look at an example and the text is up top and the image is on the bottom, you're like, what's going on with that, right? It's like you just have a whole new way of approaching it. So examples, and thank you for sharing that link, Andrew, because I feel like I go every week to, e-learning school, uh, because I have to round up those examples week after week for the challenges. Uh, Last thing, and then I'll jump into it because this is you're gonna get me off on a whole different sidetrack. Um, don't discount examples that maybe don't have a nice presentation layer on them. Some of the people, for example, in the challenges, they just say, "I'm gonna give it 30 minutes today. I'm not gonna do anything more. I'm just gonna give it 30 minutes." So it's not complete, it's not finished, but their ideas are good, and I have to see I get to see those because I have to take a screenshot and find something that represents it. But a lot of times you just wanna go your eyes gravitate to the ones with the more polish. But I can tell you in almost every example someone submits, I could tell you one thing that's interesting there that could be fleshed out at a whole different level if either they had the time or they had the skill or they had the inclination. So just because it's a simple looking example, when we started the challenges, we were actually so perfect example of what you think is going to happen with community and what community actually does. Look up the famous story about the community that just kept on saying, I like cheese. Um, the moderator said, "Stop saying that." And what did everyone do? They kept saying it more. So we wanted the challenges to be nothing but boxes and arrows. Just play with an idea. If you couldn't use a click, what would you do to navigate, right? So, but then folks started sharing better and better polished examples. And then we had people spending 12 hours on an example. Like, stop, you can't, that's not what we wanted. That's not what we get. But at the end of the day, you can't really control that. So we've kind of adapted. I've adapted how I do the challenges, realizing that there's all skill levels. But the whole point is that just seeing those examples will make you better, and don't just skip over the ones that seem kinda basic, you know? The one
I
thing I
think
always try to find out. Yeah.
sorry, David, I was going to say the point came out on this morning's webinar as well, which is that it's the good learning practice. It matters as much, if not more, than the stuff that goes on top of it. It's for there it was about technology, but you've actually got to design it from a learning perspective first, and that's the thing that matters. You could have a really poorly, uh, you know. In terms of graphics and so on, but actually, is it good learning practice? And that's the thing that matters.
Yeah, and so, a lot of folks will come in there, and they'll ask for that feedback. Not everyone wants feedback, some people just wanna it's like a 30-minute it's part of their cross training, they just do it as a way to just do something different than what they're doing in their day job. Others are asking for that, say, "I wanna know," and people are really good about it. Our industry can be really kind. If when you ask, and it's amazing the feedback. I would like to do more feedback-based challenges, but not everyone wants them, and so sometimes folks will start to offer it where folks don't want it. Because a lot of times people will submit things that they know aren't finished. They know they're not right. It's just part of that kind of like a speed writing, right? You're just going to write free writing for 30 minutes or 10 minutes, and you're not going to care about punctuation. That's what a lot of the challenges are to some people. Others are portfolio builders. They're ways to get work, freelancers and consultants. And so for some others, it's just a way. I never even thought about using a slider, with to step through a graphic. Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's what the idea. So everyone brings something different to it, and that's why the feedback. I don't want to put that out there, but when you ask for it, you'll get it, and you can. Best way to get feedback is to say, "Here's the kind of feedback I want." And if you say, "Can you review my example?" I might come at it from a technical expertise from storyline, right, or a rise. Other ones might come at it from a graphic design perspective. Someone comes at it from a instructional design. You're going to get feedback all over, and what all you wanted to know was, is this accessible on a mobile device, right? Specify. I don't care about the rest of it. Not that I don't care, but here's what I need feedback on, and that makes it a lot better for others to know where to focus their time because you may not be, be worried about the graphics, and that's what everyone else notices. You just want to know, am I presenting this in a concise or, effective way, or is there a better way I could have opened up this in slide or something? But, check out those examples. If anyone is ever curious about joining or not sure to start, I could send you a list of the 10 that I always recommend to get started with. You don't have to, some people just do it internally with their organization. They don't even they don't even post. I love you when you post because then I get to have the examples and it helps other people. But some people do it internally as like a lunch and learn, and they just with their own group they'll do them. But it's just a way to have um, some kind of time aside to practice. I I've got a dog for 2 years. I go for walks now. I've never walked as much as I have in the last 2 years, right? The dog has to be walked, so guess what? I have to be walked, and so it's part of the routine, even if I don't wanna go, and next thing you know, you start to see benefits from it, and that's what I think the challenges are.
Awesome.
Thank you, JR. I'm reading yours. So far, I can see once I start sharing, I won't be able to see comments, so I'm kind of enjoying just watching a little bit of the stream. Shall we get started?
I think we need to, yeah. But people want to see stuff, David. You know what these things are like. People want to see the shiny.
Well, it's not gonna be very shiny. It's gonna be a little bit more practical right here.
I
Go to the
understand. I
challenges, and
understand.
on the resource page, I'll have links to Shine. And I'm not promising shine, Andrew. And I don't see shiny in my description either, so, don't. Alright, I'll start then, and then I'll just interrupt me anytime if there's questions. I'm happy to stop and see, um, and I guess let me do this real quick. Um, for anyone for the folks who are here, quite a few, 116, that's really amazing. I'd be curious if there's one thing that you were hoping to get out of this session. I can review these when I take my break, but I would be really curious what you were hoping out of it because if I'm not giving that to you, I can pretty much assure you I can get that for you. Meaning that we frame these and we do these so many different ways that there's a lot of different ways to approach it. And so if you don't get what you needed, please let us know or let me know or let Andrew know, and then I can certainly follow up with that. So I have a resource page. The Drop that link in the chat. I'm not really going to use this. It's sort of just some summary of the technical pieces that we're going through, and it'll have some links to the challenges that are specific to it. I realized that my camera is a little bit too far off, so I'm going to be doing this a little bit. That's going to be awkward. Um, I have some contact info on here for me if you need a contact or want to contact. I'm happy to contact with you. If you haven't checked out our new community, we just launched an updated version of eLearning Heroes 2 days ago. It's kind of exciting. Been on that for about a year now. What's nice, I think what you'll appreciate more than anything is that the search is phenomenal. I mean, you'll find what you're looking for. I mean, we don't mind if people ask. You can ask all you want, but I think you'll find a lot more of what you're looking for just by doing your own search on there. So check it out. But I kind of broke this out into, and I have a lot more here. We're kind of running back, but there's a lot of, I think, good info in here in terms of just presentations versus e-learning. But what I want to do is I'm just going to minimize this, and I want to talk about what we can do quickly to get something online. Now, regardless of how your content was structured, I know a lot of folks, either it's classroom based, it's in PowerPoint, it's in PDF format, there's some sort of digital format probably where the source files were created, and then there's a presentation that the facilitator is using. This first part of the session is just about how to get that into Storyline and then how to get that online. And then we'll do the same with Rise in a little bit farther down the session. And just got to always say this because I'm waiting for the LinkedIn comments to come in where it's like, he said to convert your PowerPoint by importing it and publishing it. No, I'm saying you can do that. And if you have nothing and you need to get something, that's a really fair way to begin. The first thing I would do though, before I imported anything into Storyline, is I would go through the content in your slides. One thing to think about here, the slide notes in PowerPoint is super valuable for Storyline users because that's where your narration script is stored. When I used to do classroom training, I didn't use the notes, never even knew about that. I used the notes page, which is a little different option. And so I would put all of my speaker notes here, right? Because I'd have my facilitator version. And I would just kind of would guide me, explain this or ask this. That's how I prompted myself. This works really well for classroom, but it doesn't work so well for e-learning because when I go to the the normal view, I don't have any narration script. So first thing I would think about if I were using the notes panel, and I'm curious, does anyone use that? I haven't done a classroom training in 15 years other than workshops, but I don't do this anymore. I did my first workshop for Articulate using this format, and then it didn't present well, meaning I didn't have access to the second screen. But I'm curious how if anyone uses this one, but what you'd wanna do is you'd need to, come in, grab that text. This is what I would do here because it's just gonna be faster. You could do it once you get to storyline, but none of this is gonna carry over, so you'd have to copy it over from the PowerPoint. But I would go through the PowerPoint so many times, and I didn't bother to do it for these slides. You'll have 5 different themes, you'll have 5 different fonts, you might have different types of graphics, you might have a lot of things that are kind of Frankencourse, meaning you've got this cobbled together a presentation of just different slides. I copy and paste slides all the time. I get how that works. So I would do a little cleanup first, mostly because if you are not doing a lot of e-learning and you're trying to convert something, you're going to be more comfortable in PowerPoint. Storyline's got a lot of PowerPoint comfort, but it's also evolved a lot over the last 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, 12 years, something. 12 years. Wow. I've been saying 8 years for too long. It's 12 years. But you'll be faster doing that in PowerPoint. So I would go through the slide by slide and see what's there. I'm not worried about instructional integrity at this point. I'm not trying to make this the most sound course. I just want to make sure it's okay. And then I'm going to throw this out there just as even a faster way. Forget storyline. If you have storyline today, most likely it means because you have Articulate 360. Well, in your Articulate 360, I'm just down here in the bottom. I'm going to pull up the tray app. You have Studio. Remember Studio? Anybody start with Studio? Oh, here, this always reminds me. What was your first e-learning tool you started with? Is it is it like a modern app that's today, like a Rise, or was it Quora? Was it what was eHelp, a Robo Demo? What was your first e-learning tool? Well, for a lot of us in the Articulate community, it was Studio, right? Which is the PowerPoint based add-in. That's still around, even though it doesn't get a lot of love. People have moved on. We've all using Storyline for interactivity. We use Rise for mobile responsive, but you have access to it. You paid for it. You could just have Studio installed, and then up top in PowerPoint, you've got the Articulate tab. You could come at the very bottom. You could, maybe add a final quiz with Quizmaker as a way to just have a completion. Again, I'm not saying this is how we build e-learning, but this is how you get something online. And then you hit publish, and you can publish to your LMS. You can publish to your own website. You can upload it to really wherever. The point is that you could get this online just by opening that PowerPoint with Studio. Okay, I'm waiting for the publish. I probably should have published once to get this ready. It's not all cached up, um, but
You'll
it's
be
something you could do, and you could
you'll be
celebrate that win.
I was going to say, David, you'll be pleased to know that Storyline is actually some people's first tool. PowerPoint and
Wow,
Captivate,
Captivate,
Rapid Builder, then Lectora,
Rapid
Knowledge
Builder.
Presenter, yeah, PowerPoint and
Okay,
Captivate again.
Knowledge Presenter. That's that. I never even worked with that one. That's definitely going back. For Captivate, I'd be curious what version, just because that says a lot. Because there's been a lot of
Yeah,
evolution in that tool over the last 15, maybe more years, 15
yeah.
years.
Sammy has said
Any
I used Evolve as my first authoring tool and only switched to
okay.
Articulate this year. And Michael is done the same as me. That was exactly what I did, which was recording on screen using PowerPoint.
So it's interesting, right? Because in this little world, a lot has changed and a lot hasn't changed. I like to joke, right? I kept on thinking that I'm not going to be building courses. When the Web 2.0 craze hit in 2005, I actually stopped building courses, took some management jobs where we were bringing in wikis and blogs and social learning for that term was kind of emerging. Second Life, I thought courses are over. All of a sudden, it's like long live courses because here we are still kind of doing something similar. Obviously, we've evolved in our skills, but the course is still around and it's still a big part of a lot of corporate training. I think the thing that we got smarter about though is we're not building as big of courses as we used to. We got a lot smarter about how to chunk those. But I'm just bringing Studio out, just saying that's an option to quickly get it. All right, so we'll keep moving. But anyway, so that's what I would do is I would just go through and do any of your cleanup, look for, just try to get everything as consistent as possible. Click inside text, look at the home tab. Are you using your headings? properly? Does it show headings? Does it show body text? If it does, then guess what? It's going to carry over to Storyline. Storyline's going to recognize all of those layouts for you so you don't have to rebuild it. So that's huge, especially if you have branded content. So the next step I would do is I would open up Storyline and I would bring it in. Now I'm not going to import it because even that small presentation will probably take 5 minutes. And if I didn't have enough content, I would. That's a good pro tip right there. If you're doing a session and you don't have a lot of content, do a big PowerPoint import. You've got like 5 minutes to kill. Good way to kind of run out the clock. Or my other favorite is the history of e-learning, right? How did we get here? Let's talk about the history. And then you just talk about it for 10 minutes and you basically eaten up 20% of your session. I've had to do that in the early days. Now I'd have too much. But you could start directly from Storyline and just import that PowerPoint. Um, the benefit to doing this is if you import it directly from an open welcome screen right here, then you don't have to really worry necessarily at first about file size and aspect ratio because Storyline is going to adapt to your PowerPoint presentation. If you start with with a project in Storyline and you have maybe your slide size and Storyline might be like a 4 by 3, which is kind of the old school for Storyline, or maybe your PowerPoint is a 4 by 3, but your Storyline's widescreen. Things are going to get a little cattywampus. They're going to get stretched or resized. So if you can, you should. Well, you can. I know you can. You're going to want to make sure that your size that you have in PowerPoint is also going to be the size that you desire in Storyline. If they're different, you're going to just have a little extra work because it's got to be reconciled somehow, right? So you're gonna have to look at that. Maybe your better bet would be to go to PowerPoint and resize it again if that's more familiar. So I would just come in, I would import that PowerPoint, and again, I'm not going to do it. I'll just show you. What's really nice is that Storyline's going to recognize everything, and so what that means is your slides are all there, your themes are there, your text is going to be editable, everything, which is fantastic. Smart art gets converted to PNG files, so smart art isn't editable, but that's like a separate app anyway, and so expectation is that that's not really transferable out. So you could choose all or none, but you can get those in there. So here's what it looks like. Now, the only thing I did here was I broke out some specific slides so that we could look at, but if you just look at one scene, PowerPoint's linear. That's a big trade-off right there. If you want to show a change in PowerPoint, you've got to go to a whole nother slide. So everything in PowerPoint is going to be linear. The one thing that drives a lot of new users a little bit, kind of throws them off, is that when you first import PowerPoint, everything is set to advance by automatically. It's just the nature of presentations. So you do need to change that. Otherwise, you'll publish it and it's just going to go every 5 seconds. It's going to run to the next slide. That's great if you're trying to get that's rapid e-learning, I guess, right? It's over in about 2 minutes. But you'll want to make sure you just change that to by user, which means it's a click event that the user clicks through. And so once you bring it in, though, everything is here. It's possible that text sizes might be a little bit off, a little bit small, a little bit bigger. PowerPoint's a print-based app, so the resolution, the DPI is a little bit different, but it's nearly a 1-to-1 aspect ratio. I can see that my text headings, my body text, my body is recognized. It's using the theme fonts. I could change those and make that update, but my headings should be here. But I would look for that. I would look for that and just kind of click inside, right? The reason you're doing this is because if you need to make a change and you went to the design tab and because you kind of know how font themes and those work, if you wanted to make a single change, you want to be able to change that text immediately without having to go one by one, right? Um, I mean, I like to joke, maybe if you're hourly, that's fine. You want to change it all one by one. But if you're trying to get home on time, you don't want to change everything one by one. So you want to set everything up, make sure that's all tied to your theme fonts. And then the same with the colors. So is it using a color palette? How do you know if it's using theme colors? Well, if I bring a shape in here real quick, doesn't matter what I do. If I see that color, go to Format tab up here on the ribbon, and then I look at the shape fill. Do I see something highlighted? Oh, yes, I do. Thank goodness. I thought I didn't. See that little red highlighter around there? That's telling me it's pulling from a color. That means if I wanted to change the colors for my presentation, I could do that in a single click and not have to worry about manually going through each one. That's going to save you a lot of time later. Once you start developing, you'll appreciate this. If you're new to this, maybe it doesn't matter. I never used a slide master my whole career when I did classroom. I never thought about it. I buy templates. I used to off of Template Monster. That's a big site. Envato Elements. That's a big site. Um, no one uses Slide Masters. I think there's like a business opportunity for anyone who knows how to use Slide Masters and PowerPoint and just make some templates that are editable, not where every single slide has been pixel aligned, and then if you nudge it, you're completely you're lost for the next 5 minutes while you rebuild it. So this is what I could do. I imported it into PowerPoint. Same thing I just showed you in Studio. We've got a publish option. I can click publish, and I can get this into the hands of somebody. I can use Review 360, which is the review app, which means you can get feedback and comments from other folks. You could send the link to people. They can add comments and suggestions. I can publish it to the web and host it on a website or a blog or my SharePoint intranet site. I can do an LMS or Reach if you have Reach, or LMS if you're uploading to your own, and you can track it. Is it the world's best course? No. Is it a world's medium best course? No. But can you track and report that someone took your e-presentation? Yes. And so that's a win if you didn't have anything. Now it's not going to be long before your manager, your boss comes up and says, "Great job getting that course online, but we really need to do a little bit more with it," right? I mean, managing those expectations, it's always going to be a little bit more that they want. So, what else can you do to enhance it? So, we'll first look at some basic ways that we can enhance a course step by step, just like what can I do to make this a little better incrementally, or what can I use that fits with what I'm doing? Not every course wants audio, not every course needs media or video, not every course needs a lot of graphics, not every course needs a lot of interactivity. Everything's going to be different. You kind of have to pick and choose where you want to go. And I would also offer that in the chat too, Andrew. If there's a type of course that you're trying to build, and you are, let me say, if you don't know what kind of course you want to build, I would go to examples. Go to examples either in Learning Heroes examples, go to examples anywhere you see them on LinkedIn. People are sharing examples all the time, challenges. Identify the training course that you think you want to build, and that's how you can ask for help from us or anyone on how to get there. Because some people do screencast, some people do click and reveal. They just it's interactive graphics. Other people are doing more scenario based training. Not everyone's doing every type, right? We say e-learning, we all kind of get lumped into the same industry, but we all do something a little different. And sometimes the tool that you use also kind of influences the type of course. But I would start with what is it you think you want to build, or what do you think your company needs or your learners need? What is that output? What does that look like? And then so much easier to ask for help in a tool specific help, or in a broad non-tool specific agnostic approach. Like I just want to build a three choice challenge scenario for skill and drill for my sales team. All right, where do we start? Right, you could use articulate apps. You could probably even use simple hyperlinks in an HTML app, right? I mean, so find out what you want to build, and then from there seek help. Ask me. I'd be happy to point you to resources, or ask anyone in your network, or even LinkedIn. Say, here's an example I like. How do I do this? I don't care about the app. How do I do this? And you'll get some great responses. Pro tip: best thing I ever bought in the world was an external mute button that has a red and green light. Click that thing, cough all you want, and no one's gonna know. So here we go. Let's just do a couple basics and we'll move through kind of quickly. Love these sort of things. 34. We don't. All right, let's do this. I'm going to skip over bringing in some of the basics. I have videos for these. The reason I'm saying this is that we need to move. But I have these recorded out, which I'm dropping in the session, so you can see this. But let's just start this. Let's start with, you have some content. Let's start to convert to just see what we can do to slowly make this a little bit more interactive and a little bit more visual. That would just get to it. Um, Most slide-based pieces that you have are going to have text. The context is probably from the facilitator, meaning that the person who delivered the class is the one who has all the info. Um, Maybe there's slide notes, maybe there's not. Maybe it's all in the facilitator's head. If that was all in the head, the one thing I might do is I actually might step back, and I might want to sit down with my SME, or the presenter, facilitator, whoever was delivering that, and I might just want them to narrate their slideshow. This is actually a big one. I shouldn't have jumped over this one. Sorry. Um, I have time anxiety right now at the clock. So what I mean by that is
You got 25
the
minutes left, David.
I know, but it's just I keep getting there's so much that we could just I don't mind going for 3
We
hours.
could
Let's
go for
do it.
3 days. I know this. I know this.
I know. Well, I have to make up for a month anyway.
Yeah.
But this is if this is what they're using, this is not a lot of help to an e-learning person, right? So unlike in a classroom where you have that back and forth and the facilitator guides and provides feedback, asks questions, you don't have any of that. So you need that. You have to have that. Otherwise, you don't you're just repurposing slides. So what you could do, either in Storyline screen recorder, we could go to slides up in the menu bar, and you could just click record screen, and that's going to pop open Storyline screen recorder, right? Little screen recorder. You use Camtasia, whatever you're using, and I would just sit down with my whoever delivered the class and say, just give me your presentation and click record and just have them go through it so they can fill in the context. Again, at this point, you're not trying to rebuild this and make this completely suitable for e-learning by restructuring it. We're just going to use the content to kind of move forward in incremental steps, right? At some point, you want to step back and look at the content, but that's a little bit farther down the road. And I don't mean to dismiss that, but I'm saying if you haven't done this sort of work, that's a little farther out than maybe you want to lose your time on because you haven't really gotten there. You haven't built enough to kind of appreciate what that is. But getting that screencast, getting that context filled in, I'm not going to do it, but would be a place to start because then you could either transcribe it. Oh my goodness, transcriptions. I love Audiate. Audiate's so darn good from TechSmith. There's so many ways to do that now. The script is really good. Rev is good. And then you can at least now use that as a narration script to fill in some of those blanks. So that's going to be something you need because this stuff isn't going to be enough to get you where you want to be with that content. Unless you might have been the person who built the course, right? Then that would be okay. So the thing I want to look at then is what can we start to do to make this more for e-learning? Probably one of the first rules to think about is using graphics to support the narration or the text, right? Trying to replace some text with visuals whenever you can, assuming that there's going to be audio, but then visuals are also used to explain. So if you have something like just a whole text base and you don't just have that little, the classroom clip art off to the side that's just sort of really just there as decorative, you're going to start to replace some of these with visuals because when you get the visuals in there, you can start doing a lot more. Now, if you don't have access to a lot, first thing I would do is I would just try to find an icon representation. So for this one, I just took each of these and typed in a term. I try to use Articulate for the demos just because that's what I have. And that's what a lot of our customers have. So under the icons, I went up and I started looking for meetings, right? Meetings virtual. I should have written down the key terms, but right, you can find it. What I love about here's like a bigger picture pro tip too. Nothing, huh? Um, Icons are if you don't know how to explain something as a visual yeah, here we go. I would search icons more than photos. Photos and all that, they're a little different. Icons have to be much more conceptual. I think the biggest skill our graphic designers have at Articulate, and they're amazing, besides their technical skills in Illustrator and Figma everything they use, is their ability to just to communicate a concept in a visual. So that before they even touch before they even use their tools, it's that concept. I think that's a bigger skill. It's a harder skill to teach that one than it is to teach someone how to be a professional illustrator. Like I think anyone can learn that. That's how I learned design. That's how I learned instructional design. I'm probably not. I'm like the least geared port to that. I used to teach tennis. That was what I wanted to do. Um, but you can learn it through repetition and through routine. You can learn what those are, right? People who can cook good meals may not become the world's best chef, but they can certainly cook good meals. And so I think the harder part is the concept. So icons, whether you search iStock, search a noun project, search the icons for your concept, and you're likely to come up with a far better representation to help you then go find that illustration or the photo than if you started with the photo. Probably want to say a lot more on that, but I don't have the time for it. But so anyway, the idea is I want to start to represent these four types of meetings with some icons. Now it's easy if you have things like in your organization that are they're already established. You have this iconography, you have these signs. I'm thinking about like trail hiking here in Arizona. You've got the sign for the easy trail. You have the moderate trail, right? The different colors. You have a green green circle, blue square and black triangle for the different levels of difficulty. So not only do they have a shape, but they have a color to represent that so you can find them. Okay, then you'd want to use something like that. But for these, we can establish something like what does it mean for each of the meetings? So I didn't do anything besides separate the content. I'm pulling out the definition down below that the instructor would give. And now I'm just trying to represent some of these with icons because I can introduce these later to start removing text off the slide, using the visuals to communicate those concepts. And then I'm hearing the definition from the audio narration. So the idea is I found some representations of each of those. Okay, cool. Now, and we talk about this in the earlier part of the class, we want to synchronize what's happening on slide. Nothing remarkable, but what have we done? We've progressively revealed the content as opposed to full on narration and nothing's changing on the slide, right? This is probably step two. Step one is just putting a slide full of text. Step two is add an audio narration track so you can at least have a time based slide where it means they can't move forward. Again, disclaimer, not the best. And then maybe three, you start to stagger it. You synchronize it, right? Things are only going to appear when they're heard. Okay. Again, just different stages of where folks are. But then at some point, you've already got those icons on your slide, and you already got the visuals. Maybe we make it less push based. This is push. I'm pushing the narration and I'm pushing the content to my learner. They're sitting back, having their iced coffee, um, doing their thing. But maybe we can make more of a pull based interaction as we get a little bit farther down, or maybe if we just know about it. And now we just give them four representations on the slide and say, click each type of meeting to learn more. Nothing happens until they do something, right? Now it's on the learner. Now we pushed it on the learner to make a decision. So they could click one of the icons and using a simple click and reveal model, what am I doing? I'm saying show layer, the information layer, when the user clicks the icon. And then now in the information layer, I'll close this out. And then Storyline uses the concept of layers. So content sort of stacked above. And then we can have the text-based definition. We can have the audio narration. We can give more, but we're focusing only on one at a time. But the learner's the one who chooses where they want to focus that. That's a big evolution there. I'd be kind of curious if where folks what you think about that, if that's something you've already surpassed or if that sort of thing works. But I like seeing this because, you know, I was probably a lot more of an elitist before I came to Articulate because I was a flash designer. I worked for studios, I worked for small boutiques that sold off the shelf and custom e-learning. And I thought, you don't build everything by hand. It has to be this. I had a structure designer who worked for me. I had a technical writer, and then we had a Flash developer who did all the programming, and then I did a lot of the animation. Everyone had a role, and I thought that's how it has to be, right? Because that was my world. Then I came to Articulate. I don't even know. It's so funny how Tom even. I mean, I thought I was like the least likely candidate, and then I see behind the curtain of how a lot of their courses are built, not just the ones that people are putting up there in their portfolios. And that's a kind of another one of those things too. Um, when you look at people's portfolios, they're not showing you they're not showing you this kind of crap, right? Typically, they're showing you the best of the best. They're not showing you the course that was just audio slideshow, even though that's what pays their mortgage, maybe, right? Maybe it does. They're showing you their best of the best. But um, when I started to see how a lot of content was built, I realized that it's not everyone is on that high end. Here's the back then. I still think of Brandon Hall because I used to have the awards. Now there's so many other awards. Those Articulate Guru awards we used to do. But you kind of compare to what you see, and then you realize that's not where most folks are. And even if they were, perfect example, the challenges. I'm sorry, I'm so all over the place, but I just get so upset about this. The people in the challenges, you look at their examples are amazing. And then you ask them, what do you do during your job? And they'll say, well, a lot of click and read, a lot of things, right? So it's not a lack of talent by most designers or instructional designers or even course designers. It's just where the organization is, right? If your whole organization just got their content online yesterday or last year, and all of a sudden you're proposing, you know, scenario based training or performance based for everything, they're not ready for it. You are. You can't wait to do it because you know it's going to be helpful, but not if the learning population isn't, right? So part of that is that evolution. So I'm just kind of curious where folks are with that. Um, I have a lot more, I think, understanding of the different places we are in our careers based on what we do. Plus, a lot of content is just info based. I'm taking an annual compliance training right now, and whenever I have to get to the click or the performance base, I'm like, just move along. So the idea is you're going to now click and reveal to do this. Now, I'll show you my favorite part of this session besides some of the other examples. And this is something I would absolutely do. We used to do this at full day workshops. It's like the greatest activity you can do. Well, I'm pumping it. I'll wait, pull back. It's one of the most practical application activities you can do as a group to start to see content differently. And here's how it works. We're going to reframe content in the form of questions. Again, I'm not worried about restructuring the content. Let's say that this is my slide right here. Well, it is my slide. So it is. Let's all say it together. Say it out loud wherever you're sitting. This is Dave's slide. I've had this approved. People have approved this. It's good to go. But I just had an idea. I just took a class. Andrew just had a new webinar. One was up at 4 in the morning at Phoenix and showed me this, and now I want to try this. And so you don't want to get the content reapproved because you know that you don't have time for that, and you also don't want to interrupt everyone else's timelines. So you're going to duplicate your slide. So we'll just duplicate it. And now I'm going to try to restructure this 6 different ways into 6 different common types of interactions. And Storyline makes this really easy. So even if you're not primarily a Storyline user, I'd say it's worth using it and you have it as a way to practice. And you can do it, obviously, you can do this in any tool. Storyline does a few parts of this, I think, better than most. But the idea of the activity it's agnostic. It doesn't matter what you do. So I have my types of virtual meetings. It's static. There's no timeline. There's no narration. But what I can do is from the insert tab up here on the ribbon, I've got this option in Storyline called convert to freeform. So we kind of make this a little bit easy. So I'm going to convert it, excuse me, to one of 6 different types of interactions. So I'm going to start with a simpler one now because it's fastest. But I would go through each of these. And we've done a few challenges this way. To me, they're the most fascinating just to see the same content represented 6 different ways. But I'm gonna take this and pick one. It's like a multiple choice. Essentially it's a visual multiple choice. Instead of radio buttons, you have images, text. Anything can be picked. Anything can be the choice. So I'll click OK, and it's going to take me into what we call form view. So form view is just kind of where you wire things up. But I basically want to ask a question. I've just told you the 4 different types of meetings. This isn't the most important content in the world, but let's just say it was important content. But I need you to be able to identify what type of meeting to host based on the type of meeting it is. So we'll say information based is going to be my answer. Okay. So I'm just going to basically choose these, assuming that these are representative of that meeting, or I could have the definitions taken off. So I'm going to go to form view and I'm going to choose the one of each of the icons. You can kind of see off to the side how it highlights over here. And then I'll say icon decision, icon discussion, icon information. Pro tip again, bonus tip, given prefixes to objects and storylines a really easy way because you have to when you're adding triggers, just makes it incredibly easy to find those. So you're not descriptions are together, the text is together. Um, I don't work this way. I just do it when I show it. I mean, you're trying to move fast, right? And you don't always do it, but so we want to do information. So I'm just going to select that one. That's going to be the correct choice, and that's all I want for how. So all I did was I made a pick one. Each of these is selected. So here's how it works. I'm going to select this definition because I'm going to move this off to the side because I'm going to forget it otherwise. And then I'm going to delete the answers to the others, and I'm going to move them down. And I'm going to reframe this particular definition in the form of a question and say which type of meeting allows participants to discuss, to do this, and to do that. Right. So I'm trying to look for the ask. I'm looking for the question within this, and then I'm going to have the learner choose one of them to match. Right. So which type I'm not recreating content. I'm just making this into a question. Which type of meeting allows, right, participants, something like that. So I just took a tell and made it into an ask. Not the world's best ask, just an ask. And then it's click one to click each one. Look down here in the bottom right, Storyline automatically created our correct and incorrect layers for us. So I get some basic feedback and I can obviously customize this to address why it was or wasn't correct. And then each of these should have a little state that shows that they're selected. It's probably a little faint for the webinar. That's okay. So I'll preview this. And so if you the goal, the learning goal behind this is if you're not used to creating interactivity, you're not used to really creating that ask or that do part of the training. You're better at just telling, which is obviously a lot easier. It's kind of where we start. But we're saying what type of meeting allows participants, and I can click any one of these, and you can see the highlight, and then I click submit, and I get my feedback, and I can address why. And now, cool, that's my pick one. Right? I could just overwrite that, pick one, and then I come back to my menu up here, Control D to duplicate, and then let's convert this to another one, and to another one, right? We could even convert it into a fill in the blank where they have to type in the type of answer. If that kind of recognition or recall is important, then we would have them type it in. So we have a text entry version, and so we could take the same thing, and we're gonna like, what's the acceptable answers? We're gonna say it's an information meeting, maybe it's just information, right, or informative, there's some variations you might have introduced. You can choose to make it case sensitive or not, and now we'll have a text field that we can then use to capture that learner input, and we're not working with variables, Storyline's doing the variables for us, but, it's taken care of for you. So go back over here to slide view so we can look at what we have. And so we have an input field. So we had that same question. I'm just going to cheat and copy I could say, Control C to copy the question. I'm going to get rid of all of the definitions, copy these. And there's different ways we could structure this, right? I don't have to ask this the same way. I could say, what type of meeting allows you to do that? Type your answer here, right? I could have you type it. I could have you, we could fit this into this sentence by saying, because I think the original definition was, uh, oh, well, if the original at the p right? So I could do this where I have the space here, and I could put the like an ad lib, like I put the text entry at the sentence. You complete the sentence. But it doesn't matter. If you look down to the bottom, we still have our correct and incorrect layers. But I've asked you now to recall the types of meetings, and you have to do something a little bit more active than just a recognition, right? You're not just recognizing something on screen and choosing one. Um, uh, you can, which is maybe a little bit easier to pick one or a multiple choice, a little bit easier probably than a type in the blank, right? But this is practice, right? This is I always like to equate it to when I was doing cross training, they'd have you move a big tire across the room. I don't move a tire anywhere, right? I don't have a tractor trailer tire. It's not part of my job description and articulate, but I would do that to get stronger for other things. So this is a way that if you're not used to framing content, you can use any of your slides. Take the most basic of the slides, anything that you have that's telling something. You can use that as a way to practice doing. Um, but I would go through at least the main ones. Sorry, I need to get back in here. Control D, Rachel Pullman. So the drag and drop, I would certainly do this. The drag and drops currently for us are not accessible. For screen readers and keyboard nav, we're working on that. This I don't think it means you should still not use them or learn to use them because that is one of the most, I'd say, common types of interactions. A lot you can do in terms of recreating real world skills, but just know that currently they're not accessible. So if that's even least bit concern for your learners, I would avoid them. But the pick one is choosing like a multiple choice. The pick many is a multiple select, so you can choose multiple items. I love the text entry. The hotspot, basically just an invisible button on the slide. You click somewhere, and So even if these interactions are probably the shortcut key, you type a character on the keyboard. Um, But having to create that ask is the bigger skill practice here, and you can go through any of your slides and take that content, and then each person maybe takes one, and then you could pass it on to the next. So maybe it's each 6 people or 4 people sit around. Regardless, this is fun. We have a bunch of examples of this where we did some weekly challenges where we just take the same slide and rework it. But it's that reworking that lets you now see the content in different ways. So um, I like this as a practice activity. You never remove your original content because you don't know if that's going to get approved. But if you're trying to make that incremental kind of advocate for more interactivity, this is a good way to start because you can still show what you already have. It's not something completely different. You didn't completely change it, use new graphics, um, and just upset everyone. All right. we'll keep going. Am I okay to
We
keep going?
we're coming into the last 5 minutes, David, and I've got
Okay.
half a dozen questions from people I'd like to
Okay.
know. So let's just do a quick. Let's have a look. A Rian Web. How to build a rating interactive task. Can you use build ratings um, uh, in Storyline?
I'm so sorry. It did not come through very loudly.
So
Can you
I
repeat,
would
Andrew?
like to know how to build a rating interactive task. So where there's maybe 5 options and you have to put them into an order 1 through 5. Is that possible in Storyline?
So if you want to do a down and dirty version, we have so under the slides tab, we have surveys. So with the graded surveys and the graded questions, they're kind of using your course theme colors and fonts. They're a little bit more constrained in terms of how you can customize them. So if you didn't want to build it completely from scratch, right? Fully custom, you have the ranking where you can select the drop downs and select the rankings for it. You'd have the choices on here. So you'd say, question, and then it's choice one, and then choice two, right? And then go over here, you have to choose the drop downs. So that's something you could do, or you could build this obviously from, from scratch, but you have to create your own variables and things like that. But we have the ranking there, and then we also have the Likert scale. So if you wanted to do something like that, so it's one anyway. So these are the two options right out of the box that you could use. Voice two and so on, right? And then you
Good
have
stuff.
your rankings.
Excellent. So there is something in there to play about
Yeah,
with.
and you can
Awesome.
pass these to the LMS, they're just not graded.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's the big difference there.
yeah, yeah.
That's a good question though. I think I need to do a challenge on that because we haven't really done anything on ranking, and that would actually
Be a good
appeal to
challenge.
some of the more advanced.
Rianne, there you go. You just gone and given David a challenge that's going to come up. Great question from Wayne. How do you create that magnifying glass in Storyline? He wants to do screen capture, but it's often too small, and like to have a magnifier so a user can move around on the system.
So can I just tell you, you just asked the number one question Tom gets, Alyssa, Ginger, Elizabeth, anyone who's ever done the webinars with us, they hate me for using this tool. Unfortunately, I'm trying to find the link for you. I will find it while I'm talking. It's a Mac app. It's called Zoom It. Um, if I wish I knew how to program, I would make one for the Windows. There is nothing elegant for Windows. I just don't understand why not. But there are a few for I have it here. I will post it before the end of this session because it's the number one question. I actually have a little snippet that says Dave uses this because everyone gets so tired of having to get this from me. But it's called Zoom It, and then there's another one that I use. There's a bunch of them on the Mac App Store. So if you say Zoom magnifiers, you'll find them. But they're elegant. They have that little loop
Yeah.
effect. You can change the size. I can make it really big. I can make it. I love it. I couldn't imagine. Like, look at this, 1040. Look at it, ready? I mean, that's big,
Yeah.
but it is so easy to use. I can change the shape and all that, but I'll zoom it and then yeah, I can't think of the other name. I will
Wayne,
have it
Wayne,
before the
Wayne,
session's over.
yeah, Wayne has says I have Zoom it, but they're not in Storyline. So if you're looking at
Oh,
if you're looking at
it's not
product
story.
features, yeah, yeah, product features could reveal a product feature within Storyline for that, where the user uses the mouse to magnify.
I'm sorry. Did you ask me? I thought you.
Yeah,
Can you
yeah,
repeat it? I'm not hearing very
that.
well.
Sorry, I think that's the question. Is that it'd be nice if Storyline had something like that built
Yeah,
in, where the user could move it around.
because Studio has something, right? Studio has the annotation tool where you can highlight things while you're syncing with the slideshows, but Storyline doesn't have anything like that. Um, I kind of wish Rise would because I feel like I do a lot more use of Rise for presentations now, and being able to have something where I could, have a presentation. Anyway, I'll find that. I'm looking for the link. I have to just search for Zoom it. I think
No
Tom wrote
problem.
an article on some that he uses. He uses one too, and
no problem.
Here,
Evan
I
has
got
said
it.
Windows Power Toys has a magnifying a Power
Power
Toys,
Toys is the
yeah, has a
closest you can
magnifying
get.
glass, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and it
um,
works great. It's just not like it doesn't have that refinement, but it works
yeah,
it dims everything. Power
yeah.
Toys is fantastic. Yeah.
And Wayne has said, what I did to get around it was to take a screenshot zoomed in and did as a
Yeah.
layer. So when they click the thumbnail, it opened the zoomed in layer. So kind of fake
Oh,
zoom in.
yeah, and actually, Wayne and anyone else who's actually interactive graphics, heroes, we did a challenge on those. I call them interactive screenshots,
Yeah,
and I don't know if that's the right term. I mean, that's just kind of what it is. It's sort of like it's sort of something in between a screen recording and a screen. We also okay. Here we go. This is the challenge. Cool. How do I post this? How do I give you a chat?
oh, you'll have to stop
I have a
sharing. You'll have to stop sharing, David, so
All right, let me
that
drop
you
this
can
in because
come
this
back
is
to
I
the.
love
There
I
we
just
go.
tell you, this was an early one. So here's the challenge, then you can see, um, the examples that people did. I love doing that because that to me is just it's a quick, rapid in between because not everything
Yeah,
needs a screencast,
yeah,
right? Or needs a full-on screen simulation. It's just that quick, let me pull that little detail out. Bird's eye view, give me the zoomed in view, give me the details, and then I have it. To me,
yeah.
that's like a perfect middle of interactivity and presentation. So, exactly what you described, Wayne, is exactly what we're doing, right? You just click and zoom in a layer with more details or whatever.
So what we did with we had an issue over sickness absence. There was a big problem with sickness absence recording in an organization. What we did is similar to this. We took screen caps, we did a couple of zoomed in slides like this, and then we stitched them together and turned them into a GIF. They didn't weren't even in an e-learning module; they were just in a GIF. And people said, "Oh, we're having problems using the system." We sent the GIF out. It was low cost, low bandwidth, and just the amount of reporting just went through the roof because all of a sudden everybody could work out how to use it. And sometimes that simplest solution can work as much as the
Yeah,
more
and
complex
it's
one.
hard to do simple. It's hard to do simple when you've learned more.
Yeah,
I think it's harder for people who have done this for a while to do a simple one when you know all the other options versus
yeah,
it's just it's harder to do it because like even like when you're building courses and you think about how do I hide all the objects on the base layer and instead of you just take the old school method of put a white shape on the base on the bottom layer and it covers everything like that doesn't feel like it's the most authentic. No, it's probably not, but guess what, you just solve the problem in one object rather than trying to find that little feature that does all that, and no one knows how you got
absolutely.
there, right?
It's like the magic, isn't it? People, yeah, it's the going back to the old, you don't want that convoluted page. You want to just be able to click the answer, get the answer. People just
Yeah.
sometimes need the simple
We
answer. They don't
complicate
need
it,
that
right?
exactly
Yeah.
because we're proud of what we do, and I get that. We're proud. We want to show off, but you know what? Simple is easier sometimes. And Inez has said, "Yeah, kiss, keep it simple." Stupid. It's something
Yeah.
always referred to. Yeah, found a task too complex, not overcomplicating it. Also makes your life easier.
And as
F
that's so when I worked at the bank, we never got in trouble for not having the best quality content. It was, did you get it done on time?
Yeah,
Um, your time, and we even when you're working in a lot of constraints with branding guidelines and uh, photo access,
yeah,
you have a lot of decision making that you can make than the person next to you can't, and you can choose how we have a lot of we can lose our time, right? Those rabbit holes present themselves and just crazy content sick, just looking for that right image for 5 hours, and you realize no one cares. It's still decorative.
as Seth Godin says, your job is to ship it, and it can be the best thing in the world, but if you haven't shipped it, it's meaningless.
You know what? His whole thing on Isaac Asimov
Yeah,
and uh, Salinger, that's to
yeah,
me that I've heard that for 15, 20 years, that thing has resonated with me.
yeah.
Yeah.
The
I'm still more
work,
on the Salinger side though,
yeah, and
unfortunately.
the worst idea that you ship will always be better than the best idea that hasn't actually moved anywhere. So
100%. And there's you know what? I see that, and that you see that I hear that from the challenges. A lot of folks will say, "I've got all these I didn't get it done, I didn't get it done." And then there's the people who get something done every week, right? Because they manage that time and they manage the constraints. If you
yeah,
ask me for like, who's the greatest designers, some good ones, but you need time. They're not gonna be
yeah,
fast. There's some people who are super fast and it looks great and it just gets it done, and most times that's what people need. You need to be able to bank on when you can have that
Yeah.
time when it finish, right?
It's the 3. You can have it quick, you can have it simple, you can have it cheap. You can have it 2 of those, but to get all 3 is actually really difficult.
But
Quick,
the people who
simple,
can
and cheap.
balance those,
Yeah,
right? It's that
exactly.
balance of it.
Exactly.
A big
We're at
skill. That's a
time.
real
Yeah,
skill.
yeah. We're 5 minutes over already. We've already got the. I've had a little thing come up say we're extending the recording. So there we go. So the recording's extended. David, a massive thank you. Thank you for coming back. Thank you to our audience. Oh, we can't find that page on the Rise Articulate.
I got it. Oh,
Hmm.
you know what? I wonder here. I'm dropping it in right here.
Thanks, David.
Can you try that again? I wonder if it doesn't even look like it's the same link. Huh.
No,
All
that's
right. Well,
weird.
that
That is
one should be
peculiar.
going.
It's converting us straight. Yeah, it's taking us straight there. There we go. Awesome. Brilliant. Thank you, David. Yeah, that one works fine. Thanks for letting us know about that, Helen and Karen. Really cool. Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you, says Wayne. Thank you so much, says Michael. Please just
Yeah,
thank
appreciate
David.
your
Just tell
comments.
David because that was outstanding. To do an hour on your own just with your showing your screen. I mean, geez. And like you said, he could have done 2 or 3 hours. Awesome, everybody. Thank you for your questions. Really, really great questions. And thank you for joining in and engaging. Like I said, recording will be available from tomorrow. You'll be able to find the recording. You'll get an email for it. But please do look ahead and see what's coming up in the Learning Technologies Autumn Forum, which we're doing in October. We do have some more sessions before then, though, so please do check the calendar. But I will be closing the doors, and I am going to go and get some lunch. David, I'm assuming you're going to have some coffee and some breakfast, I would think.
Yeah, it's okay. I like it early. No one bothers you. It's nice. Although I do need to
Nice and
walk this
quiet.
guy. This guy needs to get out.
Oh, bless him. Awesome stuff. Right, I'm going to close the doors, everybody. You'll be locked out. David will be in here in the room with me for a minute or two afterwards. But thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks. I appreciate it. It was fun. Thank you, Andrew.